Hey there, I'm Aci and welcome back to Subnautica. Today we have a viewer requested video. Evil Sidewalk on my Discord server asked how different creatures would fare against each other in fights, so I thought I'd make a video about that. Now they requested the Reaper versus the Chelly, but I thought I'd stay within the first game for the first video. So we are comparing the Reaper versus the Ghost Leviathan. I will be comparing the Reaper versus the juvenile Ghost Leviathan and the adult separately because there's quite a bit of difference between the two. I will also be using two different methods of comparison. Just the raw stats from in-game and the lore aspect. What I think the fight would go like if we ignored the game stats and just purely focused on the story of the game and what the creatures can do lore-wise. For this, I actually came up with a really fancy diagram for the four main factors that, in my opinion, contribute to who would win a fight in the game. These are health, strength, speed, and size. They are currently weighted equally, but if you think some of them should be weighted more importantly than others, make sure to let me know in the comments down below. In Subnautica, damage also has multiple values depending on what is being attacked, so for example there will be higher damage towards the sea moth or cyclops than for the player, but I will be using the damage against the player for this statistic. Now these are the Reaper Leviathan stats. It has 5000 health, 80 damage, can swim up to 16 meters per second, and has a total length of 55 meters. Now here you have to note that the speed is measured by me personally and is not 100% accurate because I had to go into the game and build this entire testing station for measuring creature speeds. I just recorded the creatures swimming past these base pieces and then counted the amount of frames they took from one specific spot to another, or just how many foundations they were able to pass in a second. Now in case you didn't know, each foundation is 10 by 10 meters. So in the case of the Reaper for example, it covered just over 1.5 foundations in 60 frames, aka 1 second. So that leads to roughly 16 meters per second. But I think it does give us a decent idea for this video. The Reaper also has a special ability, an instant death grab. It probably can't kill Ghost Leviathans, but I think it's still noteworthy and I will be listing the special abilities of each creature in this series on the right. That is, if I do make a second part to this, that depends entirely on how well this video does, by the way. Now, let's compare that to the stats of the juvenile Ghost Leviathan. The juvenile Ghost Leviathan has 8000 health, 55 damage, swims up to 11 meters per second, and is 67 meters in length. These stats are pretty close to the Reaper as you can see, and again the speed is a little inaccurate because I measured it myself. And now let's take a look at the adult Ghost Leviathan stats. Surprisingly, it also has only 8000 health, but does 84 damage. Also only swims 11 meters per second, and is 107 meters in length. As you can see, the speed and health are the same. That might just be because these don't matter in gameplay and the devs didn't bother to change them, but it could also mean that the only thing Ghost Leviathans get better lore-wise is damaging other stuff while growing up. Maybe they just never develop better protection against predators because they outgrow any potential predators they might have. So looking at this purely from a stats perspective, against the juvenile Ghost Leviathan, the Reaper wins in the damage and speed category, and loses in health and size. But I would say it gets a bonus point for the special attack, so I'd say the Reaper barely wins this fight. However, against the adult Ghost Leviathan, this is another story. It only wins the speed category, and loses in all others. So I think it's a pretty clear win for the Ghost Leviathan, even if they don't have a special ability if you don't count their ram attack, which I really wouldn't count because I don't think that actually does damage. You could, however, argue that the Reaper's smaller size and higher speed makes it harder to hit for the Ghost Leviathans, so maybe it gets an advantage through this. But I would still stick with my assessment of, against the juvenile, the Reaper barely wins, against the adult, it is utterly defeated. Now, let's take a look at the lore and see if it would stay the same, or if there's some differences. Ghost Leviathans hatch from the Cove Tree in the Lost River. growing up in this environment, feeding off of river prowlers and other small creatures. After growing a bit, they often venture out into other biomes, staying near the crater in biomes like the blood kelp. There they still feed off other creatures, but soon venture out into the void, where the adult ghost leviathans never stop growing, and presumably always getting stronger. They have no natural predators or prey really to fight there, so they feed off of microorganisms in the water. Ghost leviathans only are able to bite and ram targets, not really having any other special abilities. The adults lose their predatory behavior over time, since there's nothing for them to feed off of other than microorganisms. But they still remain a big threat, and attack the player as soon as they venture into the void. Reapers always hunt in various locations around the crater. They feed off of anything they find, and use echolocation to locate their prey. They can bite, grab prey with the mandibles, and possibly even stab it with them. They are much faster than a ghost leviathan and much more agile. And their smaller size often also gives them an advantage against bigger predators, making them harder to hit. A Reaper Leviathan facing a juvenile Ghost Leviathan with much more experience and stronger attacks most likely will win this fight, considering that the slower Ghost Leviathan often misses their ram attacks and barely gets a bite in, while the Reaper with its strong jaws and mandibles can tear out massive chunks off the juvenile's body and more or less easily defeat it with more experience under its belt. A Reaper attacking a Ghost Leviathan in the void almost never happens, since Reapers don't venture out there, but if one was to get lost, they would most likely be able to outrun any of the Ghost Leviathan's attacks. If they did choose to fight, they would most likely lose this fight. The only advantages being that they are harder to hit and faster than the massive Ghost Leviathans. With their superior health and damage, the Reaper is no match for these beasts, and will most likely be torn apart within minutes. And those are my assessments, lore and stats wise, how I think fights between a Reaper Leviathan and Ghost Leviathan Juvenile and Adult would go. What do you think? Did I miss anything? Should I weigh some of these points differently? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, if you did enjoy it, remember to leave a like and tell me, because if you guys really like the series, I can do a lot more like this. And of course, you can also join my Discord server and request certain creature fights in the video ideas section. But for now, thank you very much for watching, I really hope you enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you next time. Goodbye!